Most of the form issues we see can be attributed to two things: muscular imbalances and ego lifting. Let me go over both right now. So the first thing I'll say is that no amount of technique work will solve the underlying cause, which is weak muscles relative to others. In other words, if there is a strength imbalance of any type, that will display itself during the heavy compound movements. Whether you're maxing out, going to failure, or simply straining hard enough, the weaknesses will be very difficult to ignore if you're actually paying attention to them. But the craziest thing is that you often don't know this is a problem until you get snapped up. It takes the feedback of another lifter or a coach or yourself by filming the workouts to see that there is a problem. So let me say that you should be filming yourself if you suspect that there's a muscular weakness. I can't tell you how many times I've made tutorials for you guys or just informative segments in general where I learned about a new weakness. So check yourself before you wreck yourself. But besides that, it usually comes down to looking yourself visually. You can often tell by looking at a guy, yeah, your form's probably going to break down during this particular movement. Usually on the deadlift, if a guy's back starts rounding like crazy, it's a posterior chain. Weak glutes, weak hamstrings, weak lower back, you correct that, the form fixes itself. Because let's be real here. Most of you know how to perform basic exercises. This is not Olympic weightlifting. How difficult is it to do a bench press, a squat, a deadlift, an overhead press, a barbell row, a pull-up? Is it really that challenging? Come on. You've been training for over a year. You have a good base level of strength. Heck, you've been training for a few months. You watch all the videos on YouTube. You've seen the tutorials. How tough is it? It's not. So when guys say, oh, you just gotta lower the weight, focus more on technique, that is correct when we talk about ego lifting and isolation movements, which I'm gonna talk about later. But for the big, heavy compounds and specifically maxing out, that ain't gonna cut it because your technique look totally different depending on the percentages and if you're getting close to failure or not. So the issue lies in muscular weaknesses. I know myself, when I do an overhead press 1 rep max, sometimes the left side will come up a little bit quicker and I'll see my body twisting very slightly. Why is this the case? Well, the right side of my back is a little bit weaker than the left. It's not stretching, it's not mobility drills that's going to fix that. And certainly I know how to perform an overhead press. It had to do with me abusing one-arm pull-ups back in the day. I did so many with my left side, a lot more, so that was my mistake, which caused a slight imbalance. And that imbalance displays itself when I max out. So how do I fix it? Well, I should use more max effort variations that emphasize the lockout, like overhead press with chains. I should do more rows, more unilateral work, and really pay attention to that right side of the body. And I see it when I flex, by the way. When I do a back double biceps, you can quite literally see the separation, how it differs. That's the problem. It's not drop the weight to 95 pounds and really focus on that clean form. And the same thing can be said for other compounds. So this is just one example. So it starts by being objective. Look at yourself visually. Look at the actual clips that you're filming and ask, what muscle groups are holding me back? Only you know the answer. And if you don't, hit up someone who can help you out. So this will bring me on to my second point, which may sound like I'm telling you to emphasize technique work, but that's really not the message. What I want you to do is actually lighten the loads and do the exercise right because you know that you could. In other words, you created your own form dysfunction. It's not a muscular weakness. It's not anything that requires physical intervention per se. It's literally a mental problem because you refuse to use a weight that less experienced lifters typically incorporate. And the best example I can think of here is curls, of all things. A lot of you guys are messing with the 40s, and honestly, you should be in the 20s. You might be like, what the hell? No grown man should be doing 25-pound dumbbell curls. Well, if that's where your bicep performance is really at, if you have super tiny biceps and you're curling in the 40s, maybe it's because you're swinging a bit. Maybe it's because you're not engaging that muscle correctly. Maybe your form is a little bit off. Maybe you're engaging your forearms all the way through. Let me say this, you're not getting better gains just because it's a heavier load if form is being compromised. You'll get better gains with a lighter load, going to failure, doing the exercise right, than having that same setup, but the exercise looks all choppy. There are exceptions, obviously, when we talk about chi reps, and you don't need ultimate perfection. I would say 80% good enough is the way to go. But ugly reps are unacceptable, and they will cause you injuries in the long run, and you're not getting better muscular gains for it. We already have a clear idea of what drives muscular hypertrophy. If your sets are high enough, your volume is appropriate, you're getting pretty close to failure in all your sets, you're going to be fine. So are you putting in the right amount of effort? So if you're curling 30 pounds and you're doing the exercise really well, you can feel the muscle, you're inducing progressive overload, that's gonna give you so much better gains than if you were to go slightly heavier, but your form is turning to absolute dog shit. That's not overload, guys. That's progressive cheating. And that's not serving anybody, and you know it. You already know, but your ego says, man, I gotta keep lifting heavy like this. And I'm not against heavy lifting, by the way. I'm all for it. I think it's a great idea to incorporate it because whatever minimizes plateaus, whatever maximizes progressive overload, it's going to be ideal in the long run. Plus, I believe in strength training, right? So my message is not don't lift heavy. It's focus on your weaknesses and drop your damn ego when it actually applies. And you know what's crazy? Most of the weaknesses we see correlate with the ego lifting aspect. Is that a coincidence? I think not. And I really think that has to do with a lack of experience in the gym as well as age. I know I'm guilty of this myself, and to this day I still don't have perfection, but I can tell you that I've gone a lot wiser over the years. My form has improved significantly, and I'm just benefiting from it. Even when it comes down to things like heavy compounds, benching, guys. When I did my all-time best bench, 385, the heaviest I did was 275 for rep work, doing reps at 10, 5 sets of 10. But I used pretty good form. When I would do my work with the chains, I would do 225 to 245 with 60 pounds of chains. My form was pretty crisp. I didn't ego lift, guys. I dropped it. I was in the 200s. And you know what? I got bigger. I got stronger. I got the best carry of my entire life. So I was maxing out, which identified the weak links. And for me, it happened to be the shoulders and the triceps. So I addressed those through the special exercises. And when it came down to the rep work, I wasn't doing 315 for reps on the bench. You've already seen me do that before. You see me do 315 for 10, but it was bouncy, touch, and go. Strict, I can probably do anywhere between 6 and 8 repetitions. I don't really know. Which means what? I shouldn't be using that weight for the majority of my rep work if I'm trying to be in the 10 range. So I lifted it in the mid to high 200s. And it blows my mind because I'm not the first one to say this. Over the years, many people have came out and said, you know what, man? You should stop lifting with your ego. Just lighten the load, do the exercise right. You're going to get better results, stay injury free. So why don't people do it? Why aren't you using the weight that you should be using, man? Why do you create problems that should never exist in the first place? Stop trying to impress other people in the gym. They are of no importance to you. It's your body, your gains. So if you have to drop your barbell row from 205 to 135, do it, man. That's not going to hurt your results if the form has been drastically improved and now you're actually getting some solid progression here. It's only going to be beneficial. I was working with this guy, man, who originally was doing T-bar row with 4 or 5 plates for reps, but his form was disgusting. You know what I dropped him to? 85 pounds on the barbell row, but I made him do it right. And since then, he's only been improving more and more as our back has gone thicker. So that's what it comes down to. Being honest about your weaknesses and dropping your ego completely. This combination ensures that form is maximized. And you know what? You're going to be really freaking happy. There's not much more I can say beyond that point. This is the way. I'm done rambling. I'm not going to try to confuse you with more points. It's really that simple. So give this a shot. Let me know how it goes for you. And I'll talk to you in the next video.